Kelly Davis, your host of the Untold Miracles podcast. And today I am so excited. I am speaking with a legend. He's a sportscaster, radio personality, actor, Emmy Award winner, senior writer for Sports Illustrated, co-host of Football Night in America, the host of The Dan Patrick Show, and most importantly, he's a husband and father to 4 really great kids, Jack, Georgia, Grace, and Molly. My good friend, Dan Patrick, welcome to the podcast.
Gosh, I hope I can match your enthusiasm here, Kelly. Great to talk to you.
Well, Dan, I've had the opportunity to work with you over the years at Children's Miracle Network hospitals. We have been so grateful for your support, and I just really appreciate you taking the time to be on the podcast today. So thank you.
I'm glad to, and what people don't realize, it's people like you behind the scenes that make CMN go and do so without fanfare or credit. So let me point that out as we go along.
Oh, thank you. Well, it really is a great team of people, including our celebrity supporters that helped us raise $278 million last year. And we're helping a lot of kids. So it really is a privilege to have this opportunity. Well, every week you have millions of viewers tuning into your show on TV and on 287 radio stations. You have a podcast, you have an app, you're everywhere. What makes you so passionate about sports and storytelling? And what really makes you love your job?
I think I'm curious, and it's easy to get jaded on sports now because there's a lot of negativity. We don't focus on positives. We'll focus on, things that maybe don't put the sport or athlete in the best light. But I love kind of finding out things. I've always been curious of when you sit down with somebody, what can I find out that nobody else found out? What can I have you tell me that nobody else has learned? And I look at the positives. I try to look at the fun part of it. I grew up at a time when you could enjoy sports and your heroes, your stars weren't leaving for other teams or holding out for money or strikes or it's part of business. It's the way of life now, and I have to cover it. But I try to bring positivity to what I'm covering or people I'm interviewing.
You grew up in Mason, Ohio. You played college ball on scholarship at Eastern Kentucky University before transferring to the University of Dayton. Did you ever have a dream of becoming a professional basketball player, or did you dream of becoming a sportscaster?
I knew I was going to be a sportscaster when I was 12. I just, for some reason, that's the only thing I was suited for, and I never thought of anything else.
What happened? How did you know?
I don't know. I just knew. That was the only thing that I thought I could do well is I knew sports, loved to talk sports, loved to argue sports. I mean, I was naive at 12 to think that it would just somehow magically happen, but I just convinced myself that that's what I was doing. I convinced my parents I was going to do that, my friends. Then it just happened. But I think deep down I thought about playing sports at a certain level, and then all of a sudden you realize maybe this is as good as you'll get. This is as good as the situation gets. And it was probably my sophomore year in college when I wasn't getting to play. That's usually the great indicator of maybe this is not in your future. But I'm kind of stubborn that way. I just thought the coach didn't know what he was talking about. They'd find a coach that would eventually unlock the key to this greatness, and that never happened. They couldn't find a locksmith.
Did you ever dream of reaching the level of success that you've achieved today? Once you knew you were going to be a sportscaster, did you have this dream?
No, I don't think, and I tell people when they're interested in doing this, is don't do it because of the fame, notoriety, or money. If you love sports, then do it, because then you'll never be disappointed. And that's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to get a full-time job in sports, and I thought that would be enough. Never worried about money, never took a job because of money. I just thought if you get to do that every day, my job would be somebody else's hobby, and that's not a bad job to have.
Well, I remember about 14 years ago, Dan, I called you up. I was 30 years old, and I had a dream of doing sports broadcasting. Do you remember the advice that you gave me?
I gave you a harsh reality on this.
Yeah. And I have to tell you how much I appreciated it, because honestly, there's so much grind that goes into achieving this level of success. And you told me that, you know what, you have to be willing to go work in some podunk market for peanuts, and everybody else wants to do what you're doing as well. And there's a lot of competition. And really, I just think people need to understand the reality of what they are up against. And it is a grind. And some people aren't willing to go through what they need to go through to do it. But was there a time when you were going through the grind that you felt like, oh my gosh, this is too much. I feel like I don't know what I signed up for?
No, I think I knew what I signed up for. I just wanted to make sure my wife and kids knew what I signed up for. And that's really what goes unspoken is you can work second shift. And if you're really good, you're probably working second shift because you're working in prime time or when all the games are done. And I didn't see my kids during the week because I'd get home, they'd be in bed, I'd wake up, they'd be going to school. And, that's where you have to have, somebody to understand. And my wife worked at CNN, so she understood the business. But even then, you can understand it, but you still have to adapt to it with my schedule and travel. And there was a lot of requirements and demands. I'm thankful that I have somebody after, with me for 30 years now who understood it and raised 4 kids. I didn't, she did. And that's a testament to, behind every good man is a great woman. And, I was very lucky, but I tell people, it's not just you taking a job. It's you, and if you get married and your family, and so understand those things going into it. You can't go in wide-eyed and going, I got a job, and then realize somebody else is going with you along for that ride.
Right. Well, I also remember a point in your career where you made a commitment that you had been away from your kids for quite some time and you weren't really going to take trips where you had to be overnight for them. Like you honored them and said no to people. And I just thought, wow, this is an amazing man who's really staying committed to his wife, to his kids. And I remember that. And I'm assuming that you had some really great things happen from making that decision.
I just wanted to come home. It's weird. I just wanted to be around my kids. Now, granted, when I came home, they were sort of like, what are you doing? Like,
wait, we're not used to this show. It's the mom show. And all of a sudden, dad's a part of it.
We've adjusted without you. But that was an adjustment for me that they moved on with their lives. And I was trying to fit into their lives. And it took a little bit of time. But I was very lucky that I listened to my wife when she said to me, I was getting ready to sign another contract at ESPN, and she said, the kids are going to be all grown up and out of the house by the time you're done with this. And it just didn't dawn on me. I didn't think of that. But she said it, I listened, and then I decided not to stay at ESPN because I wanted to do something closer to home just so I could be around. Because I'd missed everything. I'd worked second shift for 15 years. I missed a lot of the things that people take for granted. I'm lucky that she put that voice in my ear to remind me of that, or I probably would have still been at ESPN doing the same thing. And all of my kids are in college or, graduating, and I would have missed it. I'm lucky that she said it and I listened.
You did host SportsCenter for 17 years, and 2007 was a big year for you. There was a lot of change. You, as you just mentioned, made some decisions based on wanting to spend more time with your family. Looking back on that, what advice would you give to people who may be afraid to make some of those big changes that they know they need to make?
Well, I think if you do it collectively, because in this business, it's about moving forward, but there's nothing wrong with staying stationary if it's what you truly want to do. I think people sometimes view change as success, and that's not always the case. Some of the great coaches in history stayed at one place for a long, long, long time. And there's something to be said about making something work, something better by staying there. But I think I got to the point where I hadn't mastered doing SportsCenter, but I was pretty good at it. But I didn't think I was getting any better as a sportscaster. And I needed to get sand kicked in my face a little bit. I needed to kind of have a reset where I needed to fight again and be challenged again. And it wasn't going to happen at ESPN. And it's not because of ESPN, it's because of me. I just looked around, and everybody I'd worked with for all those years had all moved on to something else. I was the old guy doing SportsCenter, and then I thought, gosh, I don't want to be the old guy doing SportsCenter. And so then I just thought, you know what, maybe this is all coming together for a reason. And it did. I found people I like working with, the Danettes. We have fun. We're doing it the way we want to do it. I don't have to adhere to anything or anybody. My bosses don't act like bosses. it took a while to find this. And I think I was afraid. I don't know if I thought I had enough talent to be able to pull this off. I think what has always driven me is insecurity. And then all of a sudden, is that insecurity going to drive you to do something as radical as this? And then my wife said, the great sacrifice in her mind, she just said, we'll sell the house if it doesn't work out. I mean, that's somebody with perspective. She said, try it. Doesn't work out, we'll sell the house, and then, we'll kind of regroup from there. And then I just went in and went, okay, let's go. Let's try it.
You had so much success at ESPN, and I know that, insecurity is something that we all experience, but it's really surprising for me to have you say that, just watching you be so successful. Where did that insecurity come from?
I don't know. I just think it was always there that I wanted to be better, and then you sort of fight yourself, and then are you better? And then you're around other people, and they're better, and I almost build up an opponent just to keep pushing me. I could push myself, and I almost wanted to have imaginary, invisible opponents or motivation. And, I think at times it may have gotten the best of me because I was doing quality work, but then I kept thinking you had to be perfect doing this.
Right.
And this is not a job where you try to be perfect, but I was trying to be, how did I look? My hair, my tie, everything about it had to be perfect. And that's not what it's about. It's being natural. It's having fun. It's being insightful. It's being clever. There's so many things that go into it. And I was losing sight of what was really important. And that was, am I enjoying myself? Because it's hard to say, yeah, I got this job at SportsCenter, but I'm not enjoying myself.
Right.
So nobody wants to hear that.
You've interviewed the biggest names in sports on your show. Who have been some of your most memorable guests?
I think it's guests who are honest. I don't want to waste the audience's time. The way I view it is, I have you as a captive audience. I want to give you something while you're listening, no matter when it is over a 3-hour period. If I have somebody on, what can I get from them to give to you that then you'll go to work or wherever you go and then say, hey, I heard this earlier on the Dan Patrick Show, or this guy was on and he said this. That's what my goal is. It's when you have somebody on who gives you formulaic responses, and then you're doing a disservice to that time that somebody gives you. And that, I don't take that for granted. It's very intimate when somebody allows you into the car and they're listening to you on the way to work, and they know what kind of questions we ask and that they'll have fun with us.
Right.
So there are way too many people. I've done it for so long.
Right.
I'm always amazed, that we bring in people who listen or watch and they have fun with the show. I mean, it can be Bryan Cranston from Breaking Bad and Malcolm in the Middle with somebody, Will Ferrell, somebody, Adam Sandler, not to name drop other than to say, I never would have thought that these people would be listening or watching.
Right.
You don't do it and say, gosh, I hope these people or this person listens or watches. It's, I hope this is good and fun. And then somebody captures that and understands it and appreciates it.
Your local children's hospital is full of superheroes. Superhero patients. They wear gowns instead of capes and often fight evil on a microscopic level. And just like the doctors, nurses, and staff, you can help decimate illnesses and enemy foes for sick and injured children by gaming. Join Extra Life, a community of 50,000 gamers that play games and heal kids. Register at extra-life.org.
The host of The Dan Patrick Show, and most importantly, he's a husband and father to 4 really great kids, Jack, Georgia, Grace, and Molly. My good friend Dan Patrick, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Kel.
So, Dan, you've covered Olympics. You've presented the Super Bowl trophy multiple times. Is there a moment that stands out to you as a defining moment in your career?
I think the first time I handed out the Super Bowl, it was an amazing finish between the Steelers and the Cardinals, and the Steelers won it in the last 2 minutes down in Tampa, and I was going to hand out the Super Bowl. First of all, I thought Arizona was going to win, and the Steelers. So I'm getting ready to think, okay, who am I interviewing? Kurt Warner and Larry Fitzgerald and the Bidwell family. Like, I'm getting ready, the whole process. I'm actually on the sidelines with a friend of yours, Steve Young.
Yeah.
We're watching the last 2 minutes with Ben Roethlisberger leading the Steelers down, and Steve is doing play-by-play for me from a quarterbacking perspective. So I've got a Hall of Fame quarterback telling me what's going on, marveling at what Ben is doing, and then Ben throws the touchdown pass, and then I realize now I'm interviewing the Steelers. They bring out a portable podium, and then I go up on the podium. The commissioner's up there. The Super Bowl trophy is up there. Then I got Ben Roethlisberger coming up. Mr. Rooney's coming up. Joe Namath is then walking through the crowd. He's got an MVP trophy he's bringing up. So it's all kind of happening very quickly. I didn't tell anybody in my family I was handing out the trophy. Nobody. No, my brothers, my sisters.
Because why?
I wanted them to watch in real time instead of getting ready for the moment. I wanted the moment to be there if they saw it. And so I didn't tell any of them. And I got up there, did what I needed to do, and I stepped off that podium. And I remember walking, the Steelers were celebrating, and they're doing snow angels and the confetti. And I just walked off the field as if I'd played. And I got all these messages like, you're handing out the Super Bowl trophy. Like, I didn't know I was handing out the Super Bowl trophy. You know, it's like my brother is, you're handing out the trophy. I am? Oh, I didn't know that. But they got to experience it in real time, and that's what was fun about that. You don't grow up saying, I'm going to hand out the Super Bowl trophy, and I've been lucky to hand it out 3 times. I'll hand it out again this year, but you never take it for granted. You know, 100 million people are watching that moment.
That is such a cool story. Steve Young actually invited me to go to Super Bowl 50 with him and his wife, Barb. And I got to be on the field when the Super Bowl trophy was presented. And I actually got to touch it afterwards. And I was just geeking out over the whole experience. I can't actually imagine physically handing the Super Bowl trophy over. That's just so incredible. Thank you for sharing that. So, Dan, if you didn't become a sports broadcaster, what do you think you'd be doing today?
Believe it or not, probably an interior decorator.
Well, I've been to your house, so I can believe that.
No, I love it. I just enjoy it. I love sort of seeing how furniture and rugs and carpet. I love art. You can't do this 24 hours a day with sports. You know, I study, read, watch, listen, but you have to have a break, and this is my break. So I love reading the magazines. I'm all over it. It's my kids have a lot of fun at my expense with it, but you know, it can be a chandelier, it can be curtains. It doesn't matter. You know, what color paint chips are we using? I always got a project. Let's put it that way.
Well, you just answered my next question, because I was going to ask you what people might not know about you, and I have to assume that most of the country would not believe that you're really into interior design. So I won't need to ask that question.
Well, I actually wanted to go around all the Frank Lloyd Wright homes. I love architecture as well, but I don't know why this happened. I just know when it happened, I never turned back. I just thought, this is great.
I know we're about out of time, so I just have a couple more questions for you, Dan. There's been some shocking moments in sports over the years. In your decades of covering sports, is there one story you never thought you would cover, like the Red Sox breaking the curse or Buster Douglas knocking out Mike Tyson?
I covered a couple of Tyson fights, but I wasn't there when Holyfield bit his ear or he got knocked out by Buster Douglas. But I was there at couple of Mike's fights. But I was there in 1986 when the Red Sox, I thought, were winning the World Series, and the ball went through Bill Buckner's legs. And to really see what it's like to have somebody have heartbreak and let it play out in real life. You know, this wasn't a movie. And Bill Buckner, who could have been a Hall of Fame player, he had gotten injured, but in the latter part of his career, he's with the Red Sox, and he shouldn't have been out there at first base. He didn't have great mobility anymore, and the ball went up the line with Mookie, and Bill had to make a choice. Could he field the ball and get over to first base? And he didn't, obviously, and the ball went through his legs. But I just remember being ready to go into the Red Sox locker room because they were going to win the World Series. And then all of a sudden, I didn't see the play, so I'm underneath right by the Red Sox locker room because I'm going in because I'm going to interview the Red Sox. They're going to win. And I kept hearing these roars, and then I heard a roar that I'll never forget, and that's when they scored the winning run. And I remember Bill Buckner came up I go, oh my God, the Red Sox lost. How did they lose this game? And Buckner, where he was seated at his locker, and I just remember he answered every question. And I just came away with a whole new appreciation for Bill Buckner. He just lost the World Series. In his mind, even though they had one more game to go, in his mind, I just cost us the World Series. All this heartache, heartbreak. We have a chance to do it in New York, of all places, and then it doesn't happen. And he sat on his stool and answered every question. And I stayed in touch with him for a long time after that, because people in Boston made it hard for him and his family to stay. And then he moved to Idaho, Star, Idaho, because they were, his son was being bullied.
Oh.
Buckner is just a baseball player, and then he made an error, and it was going to stay with him forever. And the first person I called on my show when the Red Sox finally broke the curse was Bill Buckner. And I said, I want you to come on the show. And he said, I had nothing to do with that. I don't want anything to do with that. I said, no, I want you to come on the show. And I don't even know why I wanted him on, other than to hopefully ease a little bit of the pain that I saw in his face and heard in his voice that night at Shea Stadium. And hopefully it provided him just a little bit of a respite. And then I suggested, I hope the Red Sox bring Bill Buckner back for an opening day to throw out the first pitch. And then they finally got around to doing something like that for him, because, he was sort of baseball's Bartman, where, Bartman never went back to a Cubs game. And I just didn't want Bill Buckner to be forgotten. And there's a lot of things to admire with athletes, but they're people. And I admired him so much as a person that night for how he handled defeat, because it's easy to handle a victory. He handled defeat in the best possible professional way.
Dan, what's the biggest lesson that sports have taught you?
Oh, I think there's so many of them, Kelly. Sports has allowed us to talk about things that we don't talk about in everyday life. It could be politics. It could be race. It feels like it allows us to have a platform to be able to talk about this in the open and actually have an exchange of thoughts, ideas. We may not get along. We may not change somebody else's opinion, but I'm fortunate that we can talk about these things, or I want to talk about these things, because I do think they're important. It's not just something that's society driven. It's in sports. And, but for some reason we don't want to talk about it in society, but it's okay to talk about it with sports as the metaphor. And if that's the case, I'm still fine with that. But it's not just fun and games. There's a lot more attached to it, but it's amazing when you get it back and reduce it to just fun and games, how awesome it can still be.
In my world, sports are everything. They really do teach me so much. Sadly, I kind of live on the Denver Broncos and the Boston Red Sox, and they bring so much meaning and joy to my life. But just a couple quick fire questions before they end. What's your favorite movie of all time?
I don't have one.
Okay.
If you said I could watch a movie over and over, I'd probably watch Jerry Maguire or E.T.
Favorite movie that you've been in? You've been in 17. Mine is Just Go With It.
I like Just Go With It, but it was so nerve-wracking because I play this nightclub owner, and we're holding this dance contest, this hula contest, and I have Jennifer Aniston and Nicole Kidman on stage with me. Now, they don't know who I am.
Maybe they followed sports.
No, they didn't. Jennifer Aniston says, "You're the sports guy, right?" "Yep, I'm the sports guy." Kidman didn't even inquire. But, they're professional, and I remember being on stage. It dawns on me as I'm on stage, I'm next to these two, and they have no idea that I have no idea what I'm doing. But it was fun. It was great. I hung out with Dave Matthews. He was invited by Sandler to be in the movie, and we had a great time. So
is that your favorite movie?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Okay. Favorite sporting venue? This is a tough one, I think.
I don't know if I have one. I think whatever has atmosphere. So it could be a Seattle football game. It could be Madison Square Garden with a big basketball game. Yeah, there'd be way too many. It's more of just what is the moment that you're watching, and how does that fan base kind of surround it? Because you can be at a sterile environment, but when you're in one of those that has magic, just the atmosphere makes it so great. Going to a Packer game is great.
And favorite place you've traveled? Of all the places in the world?
Probably Italy.
Italy, okay. And what you're most looking forward to next?
Grandkids. I'm not ready for them. I'm not ready for grandkids, but I will be when the time comes.
I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to be on the podcast today. It truly was a pleasure and honor and dream of mine to interview you. And I really appreciate your support of Children's Miracle Network Hospitals. Have an amazing day.
Thank you, Kel. And always great to talk to you. And again, thank you for all the great things that Children's Miracle Network does, and certainly the people behind the scenes, because they're the real stars. But thank you again.
Thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of Untold Miracles. To support your local children's hospital and create a miracle in your community, go to cmnh.co/Untold Miracles to help create a miracle in your community today. $1, $5, $10, all the money stays local to help kids in your community. And if you enjoyed this episode, text LOVE CMNH to 51555 to let us know and subscribe for more.